Hey guys, welcome back to Behavior Strategies for Class. I am so glad you are here. This is where we are turning student behavior challenges into classroom success stories. Yes, where we are helping teachers respond to challenging behavior with calm, clarity, and confidence so every one of your students can thrive. Because ultimately, this is why we're here, right, guys? So today we're talking about one of the most important topics teachers ask about, and that is supporting your students with autism in ways that honor their strength, protect their nervous system, and make learning feel safe and possible. We're going to walk through practical trauma-informed strategies that you can begin using tomorrow or even right after you listen to this podcast. Tools that reduce anxiety, build predictability, and help your students stay connected to you and to learning. So let's get started. Welcome to Behavior Strategies for Class, the show where your student behavior challenges become your classroom success stories. I'm Diane Bachman, a trauma-informed educator, a certified trauma-informed coach with over 15 years of experience working in special education. And I help teachers respond to behavior with calm, clarity, and confidence while building real connection. Each week, we're going to break down those tough moments with practical trauma-informed strategies you can use right away. You'll hear stories that remind you you're not alone. And if you're ready for a calmer classroom, stronger relationships, and behavior support that actually works, you're in the right place. Let's get started. And definitely, before we get started, hit that subscribe button. Share this podcast, this episode with other educators that you know. So definitely we continue to learn and grow together. So having worked in special education for just about 20 years now, I have worked with students in all levels of autism. Some who were nonverbal, who used devices to speak, others who had other physical disabilities as well, others who needed a lot of support. Some of our students now that I work with do not need as much support. So it's great to be able to speak into this because this comes from not only my knowledge, but a lot of my experience in being in the classroom with you. So this is research-supported, school-friendly, behavior-focused strategies that you can use. And this is from the National Clearinghouse on Autism Evidence and Practice. And they actually have confirmed 28 evidence-based practices for autistic students. Now, don't freak out. I'm not going to go over 28 in this episode. I'm actually going to go over 9, and these are the 9 that I have used really consistently with the students over the years. So the first one I want to talk about is visual supports and getting that structured learning, that predictability, giving them visual boundaries, task strips, graphic organizers, so when they know what's expected, what's coming up, it helps to reduce their anxiety and behavior escalation. Because when they don't know what's going to happen, you see it, right? You see it in that change of body movement. It becomes more rapid. Now they're pacing more. Maybe they start throwing things because they don't know what's happening and they can't understand what the teacher is saying. But when you have a visual schedule on their desk, sometimes on their binder, wherever close to them, usually we wanted our students to hold their own schedule, to carry their own schedule, so they could look at it at any time that they needed to be reminded of what's happening. Now, sometimes we would have to, we would point out what the pictures were, and that's what a visual schedule is. A visual schedule is a picture of what is happening. So for math, it'll be pictures. You can get all kinds of pictures. I just did a video on this where you can either go to Google, there's lots of autism websites that offer different pictures. Some have just a picture, some have pictures and words. We've used words for our students now because they are a little higher level and so they can read. So we don't have to use pictures. We can just write out what their schedule is. And so usually we would do like the morning schedule because for a lot of our students, having the full day schedule on a visual is a lot. That can be overwhelming for them. So I have learned, just do half day. Sometimes it would just be like the morning routine until lunchtime. And then we would have some of the students take off whatever they just finished. So say they have math, reading, recess, PE, and then it's lunchtime. So if they finished math, we're like, okay, we're all done. We would show them, take it off and put it inside. So usually we would use pencil pouches for this, and we would just put Velcro on the front of it, Velcro on the visuals so that they can move them around. And so when they were able to take the visual off, put it inside the zipper pouch, they knew, okay, we are done with math. And then we'd point to, okay, what's next? And then they would see, okay, it's time for PE or whatever it is. So they could see like it's the gym. Or maybe sometimes we have also used pictures of the teachers and we would put that on their visual schedule. So they would know, oh, we're going to that teacher's classroom. So it really just depends on what you think is going to best help your student understand what these visuals are. We also had some that were for a break, and they would use those. Sometimes we had students, they were not verbal, but they did not like their schedule. And so they would constantly be taking those visuals off and putting them in the zipper pouch, or they would just be throwing the visuals. But we would pick them up and put them back on and say, nope, this is what's next. This is what we're going to do. And then they could see, okay, after these two things, oh, I have a break. So it really helps them see their day and see where they're able to get a break. Where they either, whatever it is, you could even put down if they have an extra recess. Sometimes, the kids like iPad time. Sometimes it's a specific game they like to play. We have a student now, like he loves chess. Unfortunately, I do not know how to play chess. And a lot of us adults, we do not know how to play chess. So it's great to see when some of our other students will come in and they know how to play and he can play with them. And sometimes that is a reward, getting a break time with a friend. And we will ask, whoever it is. And like I said, you can take a picture of that friend. Another visual we used was we took pictures of that student in the classroom, either sitting at their desk, sitting in circle time, sitting in the gym. So then they see themselves in that room, in that classroom. And that was another cool way that worked really well with that student. So there's lots of different things that you can really personalize a visual schedule. And if you want to see some examples, or if you want me to make up a resource for you, please let me know. I would love to be able to help you in that way as well. So again, that helps to give them a look of what their day looks like. And then having them hold it, having them move the visuals, kind of gives them a little bit of ownership of like, okay, this is my day. I just finished this. This is what's coming up next. Now, for our student who is a little higher level, we are creating task strips. So these are like for specific times of the day. So we made one for the morning routine. What does he need to do in the morning? Pick his lunch choice, hang up his backpack, get his water bottle. I don't know, whatever it is for you, that classroom, it's all on his morning routine. And then we did the same for the afternoon in cleaning up his desk, maybe stacking chairs, wiping his desk. I don't know what it is exactly in that room, but you can put that on a task strip. For math class, what does he need? He needs his computer, his workbook, a pencil. All of those things can be on a task strip. And so he's higher level, so we usually write down what it is that he needs. So it's math class and then the things that he needs. And you can do that for every subject for some of your students if that's what's needed. We've also made task strips for some of our students who were using the bathroom, because it was a constant reminder. Don't forget to wash your hands. Don't forget, pull up your pants, flush the toilet, all of those things. And so we would make a task strip and we would bring it into the bathroom and we'd point to what's next. Or sometimes we wouldn't use our words, right? That's just what we're trying not to. We would just point to the visual so they see, okay, I need to pull up my pants. Until they get to, we can just give them the strip and they can look and they can know, okay, this is what I have to do next. Sometimes we would just have that in the bathroom. We were able to do that for some of our students and just have it in the bathroom. So we would just point to the whole schedule on the wall and they can look and see what they need to do. Guys, visuals are amazing. I was amazed, actually. One time I worked summer school with a student who was autistic, and I don't remember what school he was in, but I ended up calling a colleague and saying, hey, can you bring the visuals that you have so I can help this student? Because he was just really struggling on what in the world was happening, during summer school. So I was able to get a visual schedule for him and show him, and that just really did, you could see the difference in him in having a calmer state of mind. He just knew, okay, he could look and see. And I was so surprised his mom had never seen that before. Her son had never been able to use one of those. Again, I don't know what school he was in or what program or whatever, but I said, this is what he needs. And so that mom took pictures of the visual schedule that we had and all the different visuals that you can have to create for him. And I just hope and pray that she was able to use that. And she brought it back to his school and said, hey, he needs this. And so I hope that was created for him and he was able to have more success in the classroom, because these are so important and just really help students a lot. So I cannot stress that enough, to get those visuals for your students. Also, addressing sensory needs, being proactive. Right? Between 70 and 96% of autistic students experience sensory processing differences that can directly influence their behavior. So some of those are noise-canceling headphones. We had a couple students that pretty much wore those all day long. You know how it is sometimes when there's transitions in the classroom, or especially if a student is in PE, this is their movement time, it just kind of echoes in the gym. And so a lot of our students would utilize those noise canceling headphones, and it really helped them focus and be able to enjoy the class more when they're not so sensory overloaded. Another way that can be proactive is adjusting lighting in your classroom. And I have said this before on previous episodes, so many teachers are truly embracing this, that some classrooms have covers over their overhead lights. in the classroom, and that, of course, is a school policy, whatever you can work out. Some have their own lamps like throughout the room, and they just use that lighting. Some just use like natural lighting. They just open up the windows and maybe have a lamp in an opposite corner. Some only turn on half of the classroom lights instead of all of the lights. Those really make a big difference. And honestly, for me as an adult going in, it really does help set a calmer tone. And so I really do enjoy that. Having on like half of the lights has been super helpful for some of our students. So definitely those are a couple ways that you can help your students' sensory needs and by being proactive. So another way that you can help your students with autism, if they're struggling with behaviors, is by doing an FBA, and that is a functional behavior assessment. And so that helps to find out, so what is, where are these challenging behaviors coming from? What are your students trying to get? What are they trying to access? And this really is essential for helping with that aggression, the elopement, self-injury, non-compliance. I worked with one student, he pulled his hair out. Oh man, it was so painful to watch, but he would just take little chunks of hair from the top of his head when he would get anxious and frustrated, and he was nonverbal. And this is the way he showed, like he was having a hard time. He just started pulling his hair. Other students I've seen, they just bite their arm, they bite their hands. They're just biting themselves, trying to get some sensory there. We had another very aggressive. He would go after like one of our other paraeducators for whatever reason. Like he had a tough time with that guy, and he would just constantly be trying to hit him, trying to scratch him, and that was a tough one. And he again was nonverbal. Thankfully, we did eventually get a device for him that he was able to speak through, and that was super helpful for him. I mean, you could only imagine, right? Yourself not being able to express yourself except through your behavior. And yeah, if I'm mad, like I'm going to be anxious. You're going to see my body moving and my arms flailing. And especially if you're the other adult in the room trying to help me and you can't help me, like you're making me more mad, So being able, fight for your students if they need a device. Or if you can get somebody on your SPED team to help you make that visual schedule for them. Like helping them get the resources that they need so they can be successful. I have been blessed to work in schools. We have great OTs, right? Helping that occupational therapy, the PTs, physical therapy, helping those students who had more physical needs. Speech therapy. We had great speech pathologists who just loved our students and really helped them grow in that way. It's a team, right? It takes all of us working together, and that's one of the other strategies we'll get to. Elopement. We have a student, I cannot say his name, but he loved to run. And this is the thing, right? God makes these kiddos like so cute. And he would just love it when he could run and he was smiling and laughing, and he'd just look at you and you knew, he's bolting, he's gone, he's out. And he had a hard time hearing. He was nonverbal. So we would have to try and be faster than him so we could like get in front of him, and he knew sign language. So we could tell him to stop because us running behind him doing our sign language of stop was obviously not helping because he couldn't see it. And he was fast. And of course, we'd catch up to him, and now we're both laughing. And it's like, no, you're trying to tell him no to stop running. And, we're laughing because he's so cute and he was so happy and proud of himself. Like he ran out of the room. Oh man. His mom would tell us how he actually, and then of course it was a safety issue, right? He would unbuckle himself and try and get out of the car. It's like, oh man, no, so scary. And even on the bus, like they had to get us a special seatbelt so that he couldn't reach it to unbuckle it because he'd unbuckle it and try and get out. He was fast, but he was so much fun. Like he was the happiest kiddo, one of the happiest kiddos that I had the opportunity to work with. So finding out what is the function of their behavior, what are they trying to get, or what are they trying to get out of? So having an FBA is super important too. If you are able to get, I think it's the psychologist, or possibly the social worker, or even the school counselor, I think that can get those done for you or help you get that done. So checking with your mental health team. So collaborative, like I was just saying, like it takes a team. Right? A 2024 systematic review shows the most successful interventions address the whole school environment. That's the student, peers, staff, even their physical space, rather than only targeting student behavior. Having holistic approaches improve access and participation, especially in social environments. And I definitely agree with this because we used to have a communication speech delay program. And that was a lot of our students who had autism. But everybody knew these students and everybody would help these students wherever they were. Especially if they saw my student like trying to run out of the building. Somebody would stop them and they would know who that student was and know, like, obviously that was not where he was supposed to be. And just being able, like, people would know, okay, well, this student is needs help over here. They need help over there. We had a couple kids that struggled with eating lunch. And so we would have to do sometimes hand over hand, or we would just need to feed them. And even our lunch staff was amazing. They would like cut up whatever the food was. They would give us a knife and fork if they didn't have time to do that. They would display it and spread it out more so kids could really see what it is. Like it really does take a village. Students, I worked in California and they actually have a more inclusive program. At least they did when I was there. And so a lot of our special education students did not integrate into the gen ed classroom. And of course, that was my first time working there, so I never thought anything of it, right? We were still able to give them, access to PE, access to the playground, access to a lot of the library, lots of other different things, but they just had never had interaction with the gen ed. And so when I came out to Colorado, they are opposite of that. They are integrated into the gen ed class. And at first I was like, that's just weird. Like they should be in here and getting like specialized, education here. But now I just see such a benefit of having students in the gen ed classrooms, right? Because a lot of those gen ed students are super sweet and super helpful to our students. Sometimes a little too much. We'll be like, whoa, wait, he can do this or she can do that, but thank you, and trying to give them a little bit of boundaries because, of course, we want our students to grow and to be independent as much as possible. But they were always embracing them engaging with them, getting them to play with them at recess, sit with them during lunch if possible. Like, it's been super exciting to see that with a lot of our students. And even now, like, it's great to see gen ed students engage and hang out with some of our students and want to be like their peer buddy. So I think that is super exciting. So definitely getting the whole school involved, the whole school knowing that they can help, other students who are different. And I really encourage that. You can also do reinforcement-based strategies, which strengthen desired behaviors and reduce those challenging behaviors, right? Giving them differential reinforcement validates an evidence-based practice specifically for autism, and it's definitely widely used in school BIPs. Now, BIPs are behavior intervention program that will help your students. So it's like once you get the FBA down, right, you figured out what the function of the behavior is, then you can get a BIP and get that behavior plan in place, right? A behavior intervention plan. This will help you know which behaviors you want to target to become more positive and pay less attention, per se, to those negative behaviors. So sometimes, like students who would hit me, say, if I'm giving them a pencil and showing them like we're doing math now, I wouldn't address the hitting. I would just show them the paperwork and point to the problem, what we're working on. And of course, if they keep getting more aggressive, then I'm just going to step away. And I would still point to what this is, needs to be. Now, sometimes, of course, they're going to get up and they're going to keep trying to hit me. So sometimes I would just have to step away from the math and give them a minute. And then I would come back to it and show them again. And of course, sometimes for some of our students, this would go on for a while. Yeah. Which wasn't really fun and probably not fun for them either. But holding to expectation is still important for these students as well. Because ultimately that for the most part, they can probably do this math that you're trying to help them with, or this reading, whatever it is, right? There's always going to be something that they're not going to enjoy, that they don't want to do. Sometimes they would just, like when it came to that subject, they would just take that visual off. And like I said, they'd just throw it. They'd be like, nope, not today. And I'd be like, yes, today. And I'd pick it up and put it back on there. Pick it up, put it back on there. And sometimes it would just be, okay, we're only going to do 2 problems. But it's showing them it's time for math. This is math. And then you can show maybe the visual that it's break time. Awesome. You finished math. Whether it's 2 problems, whether it's 5, 10, whatever it is that's going to work for that student, showing them that they can get it done. And now they're on to something that they enjoy. I can remember like some math worksheets, like just folding them in half, because some of our students, like they would just be overwhelmed to see this big sheet of paper. I mean, granted, it's a regular piece of paper, but it has maybe 20 problems on it. And that's just like, oh, like no way, they can't do it. So I would just fold it in half and be like, okay, we're just going to do these. Sometimes I'd fold it again and just show them like the first 5 problems. And it's like, okay, we're just going to start here and just work our way through. So you're kind of reinforcing like, this is the positive behavior we want to see, right? That you're doing your work, that you're sticking to it, right? And then we give that positive reinforcement, a high five, an extra break, a sticker, a coloring time, whatever it is that they enjoy, giving them that right after that positive behavior you wanted reinforces that behavior. I think of now, like some of our teachers, they do a great job at positively reinforcing the behavior that they want to see. And they don't call out that negative behavior that they're seeing. So that just reinforces, again, that positive behavior. Thank you, Johnny, for sitting down and getting your pencil out and waiting for directions. Susie, that's a great job for helping your neighbor get their math book out and showing them what they need to do. So then these other students who are kind of goofing off and still not getting it, you can you positively reinforce. So now you're giving them a smile. Sometimes it's a squeeze, right? They like that sensory, a squeezing of the arm. Maybe there's a special fidget that they really like to use. Giving them that fidget, helping them with the positive behavior, reinforcing that positive behavior, and trying not to focus so much on the negative behavior as much as possible, right? I'm not saying you just take it and get beat up by the student because you're trying to ignore. Like, we don't want that either, right? Getting that balance. Another way that we have used is by giving the step-by-step teaching. So breaking down what your tasks are, the expectations that need to be done, and you're putting them into small teachable steps. It helps them master skills with fewer errors and less frustration. It is especially helpful in behavior change such as routines, self-help skills, and classroom procedures. So definitely the task, like I've seen some teachers like give out like 4 or 5 things that students need to do. So you finished your lesson and now you're like, okay, get out your book, read page 20, get your skills book, and fill out page 45. Turn that in, rip it out of your book, turn it in over here, and then you can get a book and read when you finish that. That's a lot. That's a lot of directions, especially for students who have autism. So being able to break that down for your students is super helpful. Showing them, okay, get out your book and we're going to read this first. They read it. Awesome job. You finished the reading. Great. All right, now get out your workbook. Let's do this page. Breaking down the tasks really gives them success, and it builds their confidence to see the things that they can get done. Because I understand, right? Majority of your students, they can take those like 5-step instructions and do their best to follow them and get them done. But your students who struggle with autism, they're going to struggle with having those 5 different directions told to them all at once. It's overwhelming. So if you are able to write it maybe on your whiteboard, if you're able to put it on a little whiteboard, sometimes we've done that with students, especially if that student does not have a paraeducator with them, being able to write it down and so they can see, okay, just do this right now and just do the one, right? And then when you see that they're done with that, show them the next one. Otherwise, as paraeducators, we would write down those lists of things we need to do, or maybe we would just write down 2 at a time and get that done first. Breaking those down gives them the success they need to continue to move on. So the next one would be self-management systems, giving them that self-advocacy, right? And so these are some of the teaching students to monitor their own behavior, increases independence and reduces the need for adult prompting, right? So that's also where some of those visuals come in, the checklists, even like a feelings chart. How are they feeling? Because ultimately, again, we want to help them be as independent as possible. We are there to support, to encourage, to give them the tools they need to be successful. But if they can tell you, this is not helping me, or I need more of this, that's great. Some of your students, like I said, they're nonverbal. They can't tell you that. You can only see maybe a difference in behavior, or maybe a difference. We had a lot of students who made different noises throughout the day. And sometimes in frustration, those noises are getting louder and louder and louder, or more often. So you can take note of that. Okay, I need to go over here and see like what does Sam need over here right now? Helping them, give them the tools so they can advocate for themselves. Timer-based routines. Showing them like, okay, you have 1 minute, you need to do this, whatever it is. Whether it's just hang up your jacket. That was another task schedule we would have for our student. Next to where his jacket, his backpack, his lunchbox, everything needed to be, we would put it up by the coat hook. So he could see, okay, I hang up my jacket, I hang up my backpack, I put my lunch, I don't know, in a basket, wherever it went, and got my water bottle. And so he could see every morning, this is what I need to do. Otherwise, we, as the other adult, are like, okay, hang up your jacket, don't forget your backpack, get your backpack, where's your lunch go? Like, we're exhausted. They're probably exhausted hearing us all the time. So being able to have that checklist, that routine task list, all of these things help give them self-management. And that is an evidence support practice that will improve their regulation and goal-directed behavior. So what is the goal that you have for your students? We want them to be more independent. I was in a program that had a lot of students who were on like the highest level. And so we would be teaching life skills. This is what we called life skills. Learning how to just hang up their jacket. Like this was a reward. Learning how to know when they need to go to the bathroom and going into the bathroom. Now, they may have needed assistance in their bathroom, but they knew, okay, now I need to go there. We would do cooking lessons, which was so fun. And we would have each student do one step. So one student would pour like the water. One student would pour the flour. The next student would try and crack an egg in it. The next student, add a little cinnamon, whatever it was that we were doing. It's each step, and it's showing them these are some life skills that they can do. And then we actually had a real kitchen with an oven. I think the older kiddos used the oven, but we would at least teach them how to put like the cookies on the cookie sheet and take it over there. And the older kids would learn how to use the oven. So many fun things that they can learn to do to have that independence, right? To get that self-advocacy of things that they can do by themselves. Because you want them to be independent, to advocate for themselves as much as they could. Because if that student was still struggling on trying to hang up that jacket, and then they finally would come over to you to ask for help, then we could step in and help. But we want to have them try and do it themselves. And I know sometimes for me, my tendency is to rush over and be like, no, let me help you. But we have to give them and help them get those skills so that they can be as independent as possible. Another way you can help your students with autism is social stories. Direct instruction and social skills help students prepare for situations that may trigger anxiety and behavior challenges. These strategies are validated for improving emotional regulation and reducing those problem behaviors in social settings. So we used to have a social worker like 3 times a week, and he would do social groups with our students. And that was always super helpful. Just showing them different ways on how to interact, on how to deal with when they get frustrated. Now, these were higher level students. We also would do group learning. We would have a certain time of the day. All of our students would be in our classroom, and the teacher would get the kids involved, like by doing calendar, doing spelling words, going over, the weather, these different simple things, but it gave them some social interaction. It gave them the opportunity to stand up and do the calendar by themselves. All of these fun things build that social structure and show them social direction in what positive behavior interaction looks like. Another way to help your students, this is number 9. I know I wasn't really counting as we went through. I apologize. But this is number 9, in having that PBIS adapted for students with autism. And PBIS is that positive behavior interaction supports, right? Interventions and supports. And this can help your students around really anything, right? It helps to boost consistency, reducing that behavior variability. And this also improves that inclusion, right? Getting those students involved, reducing those challenging behaviors, and helping with better transitions. So transitions is something I haven't talked about yet. Those really are a struggle sometimes for these students. So one of the best ways that we have found that works with students is prepping them for that transition. Sometimes I've seen teachers use timers for the whole class, and once that timer's done, everyone's going to line up and get ready to go to lunch, whatever it is. Helping them see as well, like this is the transition time. This also is hard. We had some students who struggled with this using a timer too, because they didn't always finish whatever they were working on before the timer went off. So of course, then they're upset because they can't finish it, and they want to finish it because that's what they need to do before they can move on. And sometimes we just have to teach them, it's okay that this is not finished, because now it's time for lunch and we need to move on to lunch. So sometimes we have found using a special fidget at that time to give them. Sometimes it's giving them a book or a special book and saying, hey, we got to bring this to the office. Miss Smith really needs this right now. Let's go there. Any type of transition help, prepping is really the best way to help them with transitions. Giving them a buddy to stand next to when it's time to line up. Sometimes kids had a special stuffy that they had with them to help them transition in between classrooms. These are lots of different ways that you can help them. A timer is especially helpful. Giving them a buddy, or having that special fidget, stuffy, whatever it is, to help them with that transition. And again, showing that as well on their visual schedule. It really also helps on their self independence to know, like, okay, I can do this transition, because eventually we would start weaning them from having to have the fidget or having to have the stuffy when we did transition. And so if they did it without asking or without using those things, they would get, a reinforcement once they got to their next transition. So whether, again, that's a sticker, it's a stamp, it's another maybe toy or fidget that they can use at lunchtime, giving them that little extra reinforcement to show them, like, hey, you can do this. You made it through that transition. You didn't need this. Like, let's celebrate this. So, most effective autism behavior strategies combine predictability, those visual support, structured routines, those function-based interventions, finding out what is the function of that behavior, how can we help them with that, giving them communication supports, right? Sensory regulation supports, those reinforcement strategies, being very explicit and specific on the teaching, those modeling, the prompting, and then collaboration, right? Everybody. The more people you can get involved, the better. And so these strategies work because they target the core needs of autistic learners, and that is communication, sensory processing, predictability, and skill building. So to go recap real quick, 9 ways, 9 strategies you can best support your students with autism is by visual supports, that's structured learning of routines. Number 2, addressing sensory needs proactively. Number 3, getting that FBA. What is the function of the behavior? Why are they being so aggressive or hurting themselves? Addressing that. Collaborative with the whole school environment. That's number 4. Number 5 is finding out what reinforcement strategies strengthen those behaviors. Number 6 is getting that step-by-step skill teaching, breaking down those tasks. Number 8 is those self-management systems, teaching them self-advocacy, increasing their independence. I guess I miscounted. Sorry. This must be 8. Social narratives, social skills training, teaching that, modeling that, getting gen ed students to help with that. And then number 9 is that school-wide PBIS adapted for students with autism, getting them support, improving that inclusion. Guys, all of these I really believe are gold. I have used every single one of these strategies and seen success with these students, and they are so much fun, right? We want them to shine. We want to help support their strengths and encourage them in those strengths as much as possible, and then help them become even stronger in other areas that they have. Because when they see you smile, when they see you get excited about what they just did, and maybe that was just like, dude, you just washed your hands without me asking you to. Like, celebrate those wins, right? They want to see that. That excites them. That boosts their confidence. That just is so reinforcing for them. So try these out today, guys. Try 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these and see which ones work best with your students. So I want to leave you with this quote: autism is not a limitation, it's a different kind of brilliance waiting to shine. And we get to help them shine. How exciting is that? Like, they're so much fun. They're exhausting. Agreed. For real. But they're so much fun. Embrace that. You guys are doing great. I know you're hanging in there because we're getting to the end of the school year, but you've got this. Awesome job. Let's keep it up. Let's help your students shine today. All right. I will see you next week. Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate your support. And if I have encouraged you, motivated you to continue to learn, to support your students, even better, to help them strive in your classroom, please leave a review, hit that subscribe button so that others can see they can learn and grow here as well. Thank you.